Good evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle-earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on the old Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro_ANT. Give me a follow on the old Twitter, or I always like to give options. If follows aren't your thing, that's fine. I will gladly take the deed to your house, your firstborn child, or a blood oath pledging your undying allegiance to myself and Cover One. Also, that's an and/or situation. So if you want to follow and still give me the deed to your house, I'm not picky. I like to give you guys options. You know, I'm a pretty, I'm a man of the people. That's just what I am. Really good show tonight, as always. In the back half of the show, we're going to talk a little Bills Dolphins, but we're also going to talk some necessary bye week adjustments that the Bills needed to make as they go forward for the rest of the year in their quest to win the AFC East, win the AFC as a whole, and potentially go to a Super Bowl. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Bills Dolphins in some detail and what to expect this Sunday. But what we're also going to talk is some current state of the Miami Dolphins heading into this game. And as you saw on the Twitter promo and everything for this, I brought a guest tonight onto this show, as I have been for the last several weeks, for a multitude of reasons, for the insight, for the knowledge, for the camaraderie, because I don't want to be alone. Nobody wants to be alone. I was going to sing a song about that, but I feel like it's not appropriate. So joining me live right now on Disguise Coverage is Mr. Tom Ernisse, EVP of Dolphins Talk. I got to put your little Twitter handle in there, Dolphins Talk, Tom.
Thank you.
I appreciate you stopping by. I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on tonight, but you took some time to join me here on Disguise Coverage, and I'm very appreciative. And how you doing? Welcome to the show.
I appreciate you having me. It's always good to talk Fins and Bills. Well, for Bills fans, it's a lot better to talk about it than Dolphins fans, to be honest. But I appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited to have a conversation with you.
So I want to lead off. Big story, big news, of course. Malcolm Brown gets put to IR. Now there's maybe more touches for Myles Gaskin. Biggest news, just kidding. Tua Tagovailoa, Deshaun Watson. I know it's stressful for you. We joked about it a little bit offline before we started here and in the Twitter DMs. News coming out last week, potential 3-team trade. And then it was like, no, that's not happening. And then it's like, no, this deal's going to happen. Then it's like, maybe not. Now the rumors are starting to pick up steam again and swirl a little bit. What's the current state of this potential Deshaun Watson coming to Miami trade rumor? Is it something that's solidified and Miami's just waiting for the legal issues, the shoe to drop there? Or is it still murky in terms of how solid this could be?
I think it's still a little murky because the legal situation for the Houston quarterback is still not handled yet. And yes, I said Houston quarterback. I really don't want to use his name at this point because of the nonsense that's happening.
Fair enough.
Off the football field. There's no denying that he's an elite football player, but and I could see the side of it to why the Dolphins would want to try to make this move, but I think the timing is completely off. And the biggest reason is, like you said, is Tua Tagovailoa has only started 13 NFL games, and since the rumor started in the offseason, it hasn't stopped. It hasn't slowed down. Maybe for a little bit of time it slowed down, but now that it's gained so much traction, the Houston Chronicle came out with the article last night during the owners' meetings. Hey, the deal's in place. They're just, Stephen Ross just wants the legal issues to be resolved before they pull the trigger on the trade, and also how long will the Houston quarterback be suspended for going forward, knowing that he hasn't played a single down this year either, as Houston has told him, we'll pay you, stay home. So I don't know if that's going to be a part of the punishment of him, the fact that he hasn't been around the team or hasn't really done anything. But it's just, the timing is just really bad. And I think it's just a really bad situation for Tua going forward because he's a lame duck quarterback at this point. If the team really is going after DW, then he's in a lame duck situation, and I don't think he deserves that based on his play. Has it been up and down? Yes. Has he shown signs of brilliance? Yes. Has he shown signs of not having enough starts under his belt? Absolutely. Boneheaded mistakes, bad interceptions at costly times. But last week's game was a good thing to see him make those mistakes, make those throws, but able to bring the team back and have that lead there at the end of the game until the defense collapsed. So I think it's too early to give up on him, but the team right now just feels different.
Yeah, it's such a weird dynamic. I don't want to deny I'm going to follow your lead here. I don't want to deny the talent of the Houston quarterback. He is tremendous from an on-field perspective, top 5, top 3 quarterback in the league. But when Tua came out, and just in a vacuum, forget about, Joe Burrow and forget about Herbert and everyone else. I liked Tua when I first saw him at Bama. I had my biggest questions for him coming into the league, but maybe some potential arm strength concerns. But a lot of it was just his physical health and wondering if he could stay healthy and how he would recover from what happened at Bama. But I liked him a lot as a prospect. The mental side, his ability to throw with anticipation, his movement in the pocket. He was such a strong prospect. And then he comes in and starts playing when Miami's running a bit of a hot streak with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yep. Miami keeps winning, but they're not really doing it on the shoulders of Tua. And then all of a sudden, it's this weird, almost like starting pitcher, closing pitcher type of thing with Tua and Fitz and all the back and forth and the dance. Yeah. And then they get blown out again in week 17 against the Bills. They don't make the playoffs, but then we come into this offseason, Fitz is gone. And there's just so many rave reviews coming out from Dolphins camp about Tua. I kept seeing so many granted they're highlights, but so many clips of just beautiful throws downfield. You bring in Jalen Waddle, you bring in Will Fuller, although Fuller hasn't worked out. Waddle definitely has. But you've got these weapons to surround him with. And I love what you started to talk about there. I'm not saying I'm in love with Tua's play so far and what he's done, but I feel like it's still, and granted, if you're making this trade, who you're getting back at quarterback is a stud, so I understand it. Yeah. But I feel like it's too early to pull the plug on Tua, and you feel the same as well. Elaborate a bit more on that. What makes you think that Tua should be a guy to stick around and that he could be the guy for this franchise?
Well, it really it goes to those plays from last week. The interception in the end zone was an anticipation throw, and his wide receiver ran 3 yards past the designed route, and Tua threw the ball. So when that cut happened, the defender was there. Even though Smythe was in the vicinity of that throw, he should have been at the 3-yard line instead of past the goal line. So again, I'm not fully saying that it's not Tua's fault, but at the same juncture, why is Jerome Smythe running that route and not Mike Gesicki? Why is a guy like maybe Jalen Waddle not running that route? You have Durham Smythe, who's okay as a tight end, but he's more used as a run blocker. I think he's got like you said, the anticipation on his throws. He's very accurate with the football. Out of 40 passes last week, 38 of those passes hit his receiver's hands.
Oh, wow.
So everything has been really close to the line of scrimmage, that mostly due to the poor O-line play. And, we can look back at week 2, really signifying why this is so bad for Tua right now is the team decided to jettison off all the veterans, start all the young guys, and just expect them to develop right away. And it's cost them. It cost Tua 3 games because of the broken ribs. And having him back against Jacksonville, he didn't look terrible he didn't look terrible, but he didn't look magnificent. Against Atlanta, I thought he had a very good game, -2 errors. Overall, I thought he played well. I don't think this is a time for them to move on. I think they invested enough in him. Tank for Tua was a real thing in South Florida. And like you said, the tape in Alabama showed so much promise and so much hope for this franchise when they were able to get him, and him working his way back with that hip injury, working his way back with no offseason, COVID, Ryan Fitzpatrick situation, and he just keeps going. And his last 2 games, I felt he's played pretty well. The PFF grades, that's not the be-all, end-all with any football situation, but he's been graded as a top 5 quarterback the last 2 weeks. I think there's a lot there, but the team, I guess, feels differently, and they want to try to make a move for Houston quarterback, which with these legal situations still up in the air is more head scratching. And I think it'll be a massive black eye in this organization, even worse than the Richie Incognito and Jonathan Minor situation.
Wow, that's a very dramatic statement. One of the words you used just now was head scratching, and I feel like that's a situation for the Dolphins as a whole. Coming into this year, again, I know what happened at the end of last year, but I don't even think they were a dark horse coming into this year. A lot of people thought this is a team that's going to make that next jump up. I really loved the pick of Jalen Waddle and what he added to the offense. I even like Jalen Phillips. His name's Javon Holland. I was a guy who I really like coming out of Oregon. And you add those guys, granted, they lost a lot of veterans, but you would think like, okay, they'll be able to keep some things together. What Flores has been able to do with that team, even the year before in 2019, almost like squeezing blood from a stone. And now things have evolved. And we're sitting here with Miami at 1-6. What is, how have things gone off the rails? Is it a player performance aspect on the field? Is it Flores and the coaching staff? How did we get here to this 1-6 start for a team that a lot of people thought were, I don't want to say a lock for the playoffs, but is pretty solidly in the playoff conversation. And some people even had them pegged to challenge the Bills for the AFC title.
Yeah. I think it's an array of things. You could start with the offseason, jettisoning off on defense, Kyle Van Noy. You move on from Bobby McCain, 2 veteran guys. Those guys aren't going to light the world on fire, but what do they have? They have the experience. They have the knowledge of the defense. They've been there. And you jettison them off, and you're playing young guys, right? So rookies can't hit the ground running every single situation, no matter what position they play. It takes some time. It's the National Football League. These guys just can't come in and expect to be a Patrick Mahomes type player or Ray Lewis or Ed Reed. You have to develop these guys. And I think that's been the biggest flaw of this rebuild is they haven't been able to develop players. The offensive line hasn't developed. Austin Jackson has regressed significantly from his rookie season, where I thought he was average at best. But there was signs that he could be a good tackle. Completely whiffed. Noah Igbenogany taken in the first round. He can't even see the damn football field. They have him inactive almost every week unless they are forced to play him due to injuries. They're just, again, mismanagement up front, coaching staff not developing players. The 2 or 3 offensive coordinator system is an absolute joke.
Yeah, not good.
It's an absolute joke. George Gotzi has been calling plays for the last 2 weeks for Tua. The offense has looked better in those 2 games because there's one voice. And I think that has a lot to do with it. So I never understood the 2 OC system. I never understood why Charlie Fry is calling plays into Tua instead of the offensive coordinator who's calling the plays. They're relaying plays in. It's an absolute train wreck. So I think it starts at the top. I think Chris Grier mismanaged the offseason. Brian Flores is mismanaging the players and how they are getting ready for each game. And now mismanaging a quarterback that has only played 13 games, and they could have squashed this and say, we are not interested in making a trade for another quarterback. It's just Tua's our quarterback. We know what happened with Josh Rosen. Hey, Josh Rosen's our guy. We're not worried about Kyler Murray. There it is.
Yeah. I had 2 questions, but I want to start with the first. You mentioned Flores. Is Flores on any type of hot seat right now? Is there any kind of feeling with that, or is it still, granted, I was just about to say, or is it too early for that? I also think it's too early to make a concrete decision on Tua, but nonetheless, here we are. Is it, is Flores on that hot seat?
I think the heat's turning up a lot.
Okay.
I don't think they're ready to move on from Chris Grier and Brian Flores combination. But one thing that you can't have is talking out of both sides of your mouth, especially when it comes to a leader of the team. I don't care that he doesn't have the C on his jersey. He's a leader of the team. And when you're talking out of both sides of your mouth to the media and all these reports are coming out and you're still doing the same thing, that's how you lose a locker room.
Yeah.
You can't keep doing this to the team. So there's too many distractions. The press conference today, 90% of it was about potentially trading for the Houston quarterback versus let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. So distraction. The Dolphins can use a lot less distraction when it comes to playing against a team like the Buffalo Bills, because the Bills have had their number for many years now, and these games are blowouts. They're not even close.
What the second question I wanted to piggyback on there, you mentioned some of the blowouts. The Dolphins defense, even when they were successful last year, when they came against the Bills, just were not successful. And we saw that again. They made the Bills a little inefficient in week 2, but we saw them struggle again. What's going on with the Miami defense? Javon Howard is arguably a defensive MVP candidate last year, leads the league in interceptions, hits double digits. You got Byron Jones. Is that corner combo not working out? I know that was what the defense was really hanging their hat on. Is it a lot to do with the loss of Kyle Van Noy? This was a defense last year that I think carried Miami through a lot of their good stretch. Even the 100%. Game that they lost to Kansas City, they looked really good defensively against Kansas City, especially early on. What's kind of falling apart here when it comes to the Dolphin defense this year?
I think it's scheme. I think it's the inexperience. You replace Kyle Van Noy with Andrew Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel was a very good rotational guy last year. He can get after the quarterback. He's just getting exposed this year. Okay. Jerome Baker has always been a steady linebacker, good sideline to sideline guy. Can't stop the run. You have Benardrick McKinney, who is a run stuffer in camp. You cut him. Landon Roberts can lay the lumber for sure. Not consistent enough. Jalen Phillips is an outside linebacker listed versus him with his hand in the ground in like a 4-3 situation. So I think they're just trying to outsmart themselves, thinking they can play guys where they shouldn't be playing and just try to develop them throughout the season. They're just getting exposed. And that last drive against Atlanta, if you haven't seen it, you're putting Kyle Pitts one-on-one with Xavier Howard. Xavier Howard, arguably one of the best corners in football.
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts is a man among boys. You put him one-on-one in a jump ball situation, I still take Kyle Pitts 7 times out of 10 against Xavier Howard, and they gave up 2 long plays to give Matt Ryan opportunity to just juice the clock and kick a field goal. I mean, it's those moments, and they did it against the Jaguars too. Big plays. Couldn't stop the Jaguars, and and the season's off the rails. And defensively, that's where it is. They can't get off the field on third down. They were number 1 in the league last year in third down percentage. I believe that right now they're ranked 30th in third down defense. It's not good. Yeah, and I think that's what was their strength last year, is they just gave their offense opportunities to put points on the board because they were getting the teams off the field on third downs. They're just not doing it this year.
I love that you brought up the third down defense. I remember researching it. It's in my note. I had it for the episode I did before the first Bills-Dolphins game in week 2, and I was so surprised to see them. Not surprised, but they were the best defense on third down last year, and it wasn't just like they were like head and shoulders above everyone else getting teams off the field on third down, and you just have not seen that this year. No. And they're just not it's so weird because I think Xavier Howard is good. Like they've got some studs, but it's almost like the puzzle pieces are just doing this and they're not working together. Right. And then combine that with the scheme and the coaching staff, and it's a very interesting dynamic and how things have kind of fallen apart a little and gone off the rails, as you said. But let's shift towards a little bit of positivity for Miami. Who are some silver linings for this team this year, and who could potentially, make some good plays for Miami coming into this week against the Bills that Bills fans need to keep an eye on in terms of guys that can make life difficult for Buffalo?
Well, the guy that's made life difficult for Buffalo in a lot of the games since he's come into the league is Mike Gesicki. And he's continuing to show that dominance that, again, mismanagement. Why is he not re-signed a contract yet with the team? He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So unless they slap the franchise tag on him or if they let him walk, I think this fan base is going to melt down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
because when you look at steady play on offense, you can always count on Mike Gesicki to make that play.
Oh, good point.
He has been the shining star on a dead tree, so to speak, when they're talking about Christmas. The light bulbs aren't always on, but the shining star, the one bulb that's always on, is Mike Gesicki. Defensively, Christian Wilkins has really come into his own in his third year. I think he's made a huge leap as a pass rusher. where he's getting to the quarterback, but he's also one of the best run stuffing edges in the league at this point. I believe he's top. I think he's in the top 5 in run block win rate percentage. So there's a lot to like there. Javon Holland has been great. His game really reminds me a lot of like Rashad Jones when we had him for so many years. So it's a guy that can play in the box. It's a guy that can, really lay the lumber. And, he had a good, clean shot on Calvin Ridley last week that forced a fumble.
Oh, great hit over the middle. Nice, clean hit. Popped him, drove the shoulder, lifted him. It was a great shot. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are some bright spots on this team. But the biggest thing that goes into this game is obviously number one. It's Tua and how he plays on the road against a team where, week 2, I don't even think he could blink his eye before there was a pass rusher in his face. I think if the team learned enough from week 2 and learned enough over the last 2 weeks, they have to put him in successful situations. They can't get behind the sticks. And if that's the case, can they make a game out of it? Yeah, sure, they can make a game out of it. But it's the other side of the ball, the defense, that has to figure out a way to make a play against Josh Allen, because Josh Allen, and the memes make sense. Unfortunately, I have to say it, the memes make sense when Josh Allen is holding a dolphin or whatever else as like a daddy or whatever. I mean, it makes sense. Josh Allen has been a thorn in the Dolphins' side since 2018. He's only lost once to the team, and now I think that was the first or second game of that season they played.
The one where he had that throw to Charles Clay late, and it was just a little short, but Clay should have caught it. Yeah, that was a rough one.
Yeah. That's really what it boils down to. I'm excited for the game because I've enjoyed watching Tua play the last 2 weeks. I think, again, there's a lot on his mind. You could see he's dejected. He knows the rumors are there. He knows everything that's going on. But being told that, no, hey, you're a guy, we're not trading for anybody, and then lo and behold, November 2nd, potentially, might happen. So I don't know. It's been a rough year for the Dolphins for sure.
Yeah, I feel for you. I hate speaking like this because I'm so paranoid as a Bills fan, and then my favorite baseball team is the Red Sox, and even though they won World Series, I'm still always like paranoid about just the rug being pulled out from underneath me at all times, but and so I don't want to jinx anything, but yeah, I hate Miami, but I feel for Tua, and I feel for teams who are just trying to rebuild, and the fan base that's like, because God knows how many Buffalo's had where it's like, we're in the rebuild, this is it, and it's like, nope, and 2 years later it's like, no, this is it, it's nope, and you just keep getting in that perpetual cycle, and it's just rough. And I feel for Tua, and good fans like you who are calm and level-headed and awesome, and I appreciate you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I reached out to you earlier in the week, and you're able to join, and I know you got some other familial obligations to attend to now, so I'll let you go. But before you go, let everyone know where they can find you, what you do, and all that kind of stuff.
You can find me at Dolphins Talk Tom on Twitter. DolphinsTalk.com is our website, and our every day on MiamiDolphins.com, we have an article up called The Blitz, where we feature all the news around the team as well as the podcast from the previous day. So a lot of good stuff going on our site, and I appreciate you guys at Cover One. This is the second time I'm on this year, multiple times over the couple years. So I always love coming on, talking to you guys, and hopefully we can get the rivalry truly back maybe next year, but it's not this year.
Yeah, not this year. We'll see how it happens in the future. And yeah, you deserve every ounce of accreditation and respect you get. Greg Thompson, who you were on with him and Aaron earlier in the year, you came highly recommended from him as I was trying to figure out guests again for this. So yeah, you're tremendous, and Dolphins Talk is a tremendous website. I always tell everybody, even if you're just a Bills fan, it's always good to stay up on top of NFL news in general, but your opponents at all times. And so it's always good to give follows and attention to other teams and people around the league. And you're one of the go-tos for that. So Tom, I'll let you go. Take care of everything you got to do. Thank you so much for being here. You were tremendous. You got a bunch of love in the chat. Yeah. Thanks for stopping by.
Appreciate it, guys.
Hell yeah. Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye. Man, man, I feel like I'm just riding this high of fantastic guests that keep coming on the show. We've had it for the last several weeks, really, as ever since we started going on and bringing more guests on from other teams for disguise coverage. So shout out to Tom. Everybody go and give him a follow. Again, I'm not just saying it because I had him on or because he was here. Really insightful, tremendous website. I use it myself. Like, again, I like to stay up on everyone in the NFL, personnel, teams, front office, on field, every ounce and stuff like that. So good website and a good dude in Tom. Give him a follow on the old Twitter. Check out the website. Really good stuff. As we transition now to the back half of this show, we're going to continue talking about Bills Dolphins for this week, and then we're going to end the show with some bye week adjustments that I really wanted to see the Bills make, and I really wanted to see the Bills hit. But before I do that, I want to mention the sponsor part of this show. As you guys know, or you should know by now, or if this is your first time stopping by Disguise Coverage 1, welcome to. This show is sponsored by One Pie Pizza. You see the Twitter handle there in the banner. The online menu for One Pie Pizza is in the episode description of this show. They are tremendous. I love pizza, and ever since moving back to Buffalo, getting Buffalo pizza, I don't necessarily want to say like Buffalo is the best and I hate any other city's pizza, but I love Buffalo pizza so much. It's near and dear to my heart. And One Pie Pizza is one of, if not the best pizza in all of Buffalo. And again, I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor. Delicious sweet sauce pie, homemade blue cheese, good people, good pizza. They believe in quality over quantity. They believe in doing one thing and doing that one thing right, and that's making great pizza. And they also have an awesome promotion going on for the month of October. October is Cancer Awareness Month, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but now it's kind of turned into Cancer Awareness Month in general, and for the entire month of October. So for the rest of this remaining week here in October, in addition to the entire month, One Pie Pizza will be donating a portion of every pizza sold to the Roswell Park Cancer Institute in their efforts to knock out cancer. So go get yourself some One Pie Pizza, treat your taste buds, treat yourself, and also treat humanity and people and do some good. Get some delicious pizza, get some good food, and also do some good by trying to help knock out cancer. So awesome people, awesome pizza, and an awesome cause for this month of October from One Pie Pizza. Again, the online menu is in the episode description here, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on one of the podcasting platforms. And when you go there, tell them that Cover One and Disguise Coverage sent you. They're open Monday through Saturday, 11 to 8, but they are open this Sunday for Halloween. They are taking pre-orders. Check out their Twitter page or the website and get ahead of that because it's awesome. I'm legitimately going to be doing that because I want that pizza and I need that pizza. And seeing all the comments starting to roll through, as always, as we start to now get into the more solo part of the show for myself. Any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns that you guys are throwing up in the chat, I try to get to anything and everything if I can. Super chats always help, not just because of the donation piece, but literally because it attracts my eye better and allows me to pull up comments. But I will start to get to some of those things as we start to move on throughout this show. Appreciate you, Dawn. Cover One regular, Disguise Coverage regular, always, anywhere and everywhere. Thank you. From my wife gave me a water. She's fantastic. Always, anywhere and everywhere, there's a Cover One show. And thank you for the nice comment there, Don. Appreciate you. So we're going to continue talking about some of the Bills Dolphins pieces. And Tom talked about it. He was tremendous in breaking it down. Throw up the banner there. Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins. This is a game for the Bills that I hate saying it because I am superstitious. Not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. Haha. But seriously, I am superstitious. This should be a game the Bills should win. Miami is coming into this game limping. They are wounded. They've played better over the last couple of weeks. I know the competition was lower a little. Also, Marissa, I see your question. I'm going to get to it in a minute. I think it's a tremendous question. They played better over the past weeks. I know the competition was a little lower in Jacksonville and Atlanta, but Tua has looked good the past couple of weeks. Again, I know competition, but regardless of that, they're just not clicking as a team. I think with the drama and everything that's going on in that locker room and with that organization, this should be a game where the Bills should come in and just stomp Miami, especially coming out of the bye week. And Miami, just looking at them as a whole, even if we just look at the raw stats, right? We look at offense. I normally give advanced metrics like coverage tendencies and personnels and things. And the site I normally use SIS Sports Info Solutions was being very, very, very wonky, and I couldn't get all of those. But I got the raw metrics to combine and put together some context. So Miami's offense, 29th in points per game with 18.1 points per game. Also, granted, let's be fair, several of those games were played with Jacoby Brissett, so that isn't necessarily reflective of Tua and the Dolphins offense under Tua. Also, it isn't reflective of the coordinator change, like Tom spoke about, that Miami has had over the past couple of weeks and how much better they've been offensively with that. But Miami is sitting, as I mentioned, 29th in points per game at 18.1 points per game. They are 24th in passing yards per game at 227.4. They are 31st, so second last in terms of rushing yards per game with 80.1. They are 28th in pass blocking efficiency. Tom touched on some of their woes up front in terms of pass protection, and they are last in the NFL in pass block win rate. Fun fact for them, they are 4th in run block win rate, which is very interesting considering that they're 31st in rushing yards per game. But some talk you'll hear from people who cover the Dolphins and from Dolphin fans, although fans aren't necessarily the most rational and objective people, there has been talk of running the ball a little bit more and trying to get more out of the running game, which they haven't. And so it's very interesting that they're 4th in run block win rate. They're also 12th in the NFL in sacks allowed with 17. 6 of those 17 sacks coming at the hands of the Buffalo Bills in week 2. 11 turnovers in the year so far. And if we're just looking at Tua and how this offense operates under Tua, Tom spoke about it a little bit, but he's 27th in the NFL in intended air yards per throw at 7.4. For reference, Josh Allen is 2nd in the NFL at 9.5. So Allen's throwing roughly two more yards per through the air for intended air yards per throw. And then Tua is 23rd in the NFL in completed air yards at 5.5. So again, the ball's traveling roughly 5.5 yards in the air per completion. Devontae Parker, a lead weapon for Miami, 2nd lowest separation in the NFL, minimum of 20 targets. He's averaging 1.8 yards of separation. 2nd lowest. That's absolutely terrible. Jalen Waddle, though, has been a nice piece for them, even as a rookie. He's 9th in, again, amongst, guys who have at least 20 targets. He's 9th in separation, averaging 4 yards of separation. He's 10th in the NFL in catch percentage, and he's 15th in the NFL with targets. We've seen Miami be creative and get him the ball on jet sweeps and handoffs and getting the ball downfield a little bit. That was part of the reason of bringing him in to Miami this year, to expand that vertical aspect of the Dolphins offense, which he has to a degree. Same thing with Will Fuller. That's a hard thing to say, with Will Fuller. Try and say that 5 times fast. Fuller hasn't, really worked out for them. Some odd things to start the year, and then injuries again, which always seem to pick up for him. But Waddle is definitely a weapon. I joked about the Malcolm Brown, Myles Gaskin aspect to lead the show. Myles Gaskin isn't. Oh, sorry, I got to pull this comment up. I feel for you, Justin. Waddle is on my fantasy team, but when I picked him, Jamar Chase was still on the board. Hindsight is 2020, but dude, I feel you on that one. Ooh, John, thank you so much for your super chat donation. I greatly appreciate you. And I greatly appreciate you just being here in attendance in general. You make the chat 1,000 times better, and your comments are always spot on. A little bit of knowledge here from John. First round, 2017, Miami takes linebacker Charles Harris, pick 23rd. TJ Watt goes pick 30. Oops. 2018 takes Minkah Fitzpatrick, trades him to Pittsburgh. 2019 takes Christian Wilkins over Jeffrey Simmons. 2020, they take Tua over Justin Herbert. Ouch. Love the detail, John. Love your donation. Love the comment. Love you being here. Thank you so much. Actually, I'm going to go back and leave that up. That's a tremendous piece. I'm going to talk about it for a little bit. We've seen this so much with the Bills go. I still always go, even though it's just one, but it's representative of so many other ones, like the Bills trading up for Sammy Watkins. And I'll always think, like, we could have just stood where we were and gotten Aaron Donald. Or even if we traded up, we could have taken Khalil Mack instead of Sammy Watkins. All those could have, should have, what ifs. Miami's had several. And what was awesome from Tom in what he was talking about earlier in this episode was how Miami's trying to rely on their younger players and needing them to develop, and they're not developing them. And part of it is the quality of players you're really taking. Minkah Fitzpatrick is hands down the best guy in these draftables that John has put up here, and they traded him away to Pittsburgh as they started to do that tear down and that tank for Tua. I like Christian Wilkins, but Jeffrey Simmons is an all-pro. Wilkins is good, but he's not at the level of Simmons yet. And Tua over Herbert, I think that's part of the reason why Tua gets even more flack than he maybe would get regularly, because Justin Herbert went after him, and Justin Herbert had a great rookie year with the Chargers and is having another good year this year with the Chargers. And every time Justin Herbert does well, it's another kick in the gut to the Dolphins and another kick in the gut to Tua because he came after Tua. So awesome comment, John, and thank you so much for the donation. Yeah, it's been a rough go for the Miami Dolphins, and Jalen Waddle, I think, might be a little diamond in the rough and silver lining. I don't want to say diamond in the rough because I think he's not necessarily in the rough. I think a lot of people know who Jalen Waddle is, and he's done well. I think he's someone to watch for. And Myles Gaskin, I don't think he's necessarily a 3-down workhorse running back, if that even exists in today's NFL. But Myles Gaskin can do some things coming out of the backfield. He can present some mismatch opportunities. He's a good route runner, especially coming out of the backfield. But this offense is going to run through Tua, Gesicki, and Jalen Waddle. Roman, I know you commented multiple times on the contested catch piece in terms of what Devontae Parker is. There you go. Yeah, Parker has always been a contested catch guy, which is evidenced by the fact that he's got the second lowest separation amongst guys who have seen 20 targets in the NFL. Yeah, you know what you're going to get with Parker. He's not a burner. He's going to try and win at the catch point. He's going to use his body, size, and hands. He's given the Bills some problems at different times. He's actually gotten significant amounts of separation against the Bills, even against Tre'Davious White in some previous matchups, especially last year, even when the Bills were winning. But Gesicki has given the Bills problems at times. So look for Tua, look for Gesicki, look for them to get creative in how they give Jalen Waddle the ball. Malcolm Brown, as I mentioned, is out. The Dolphins signed Duke Johnson to replace Malcolm Brown, but you're most likely going to see a lot of Myles Gaskin and Sylvan Ahmed, the other running back there for Miami. So this should be a game that favors the Buffalo Bills from and Miami offensive standpoint versus a Bills defense standpoint. And we're going to continue to talk about how those things connect a little bit later in the show. But now I want to switch to the Dolphins defense, who we spoke about a bit with Tom, because it really is bonkers what this defense has done this year. And I don't want to say how they completely fallen off, but this was, again, Xavier Howard had a tremendous year last year. And they made offenses inefficient. They got turnovers. They were tremendous on third down. They were objectively the best third down defense in the NFL in terms of, preventing offenses from converting and keeping them off the field. And we just have not seen that this year, just in terms of raw metrics. Second most points per game allowed, 29.6. Third most passing yards per game allowed at 297.1. 19th in rushing yards per game allowed at 117.7. They're 11th in takeaways with 9, but they've turned it over 11 times on offense, so they're at a -2 differential. They're 28th in sacks per game at 1.7. Not creating toxic differential plays. Shout out to Mr. Aaron Quinn. They are not making those plays on defense that they seem to make with regularity last year, and it's really coming back to bite them, especially if you're not going to consistently score on the offensive side of the ball. And awesome comment there from you, Lost. Yeah, they were relying on those turnovers. They got a lot of, and that's not sustainable. Turnover production, whether positively or negatively, usually regresses towards the mean, positively or negatively in some sort of regard, year after year. But they were good on third down. They were a quality unit. Like, I know the Bills carved them up both times they played them last year, but Miami's defense was good. They were good in fantasy. They were good in real NFL. They were leading the league in terms of lowest points per game through a decent stretch of last year. And this is all of a sudden not that unit. They are not striking fear into anyone. And you thought they could at least lean on Xavier Howard and Byron Jones at the corner position. And they have not been those pillars of strength for this Dolphins defense. Do keep an eye on Javon Holland, the rookie from Oregon that Tom spoke about. he's been really good. He's a jack of all trades. He was more nickel than he was safety in college, but he has good coverage ability. He can make plays in the center of the field. If you want to see an awesome play from him, you might not want to because he's a Dolphin, but he lit up Calvin Ridley in the middle of the field last week against Atlanta, so he's a fun player for the Miami Dolphins. But if we're looking at this game objectively, not just even because we're a Bills podcast, this is a very, very, very winnable game for the Buffalo Bills. They've had an extra week of rest and preparation. They should be coming out angry and mad, and they should stomp the Miami Dolphins this upcoming Sunday on Halloween. That is what should happen. I don't know if it necessarily will, and I don't want to say that it will because I am superstitious, as I've mentioned, but this is a game that the Bills should run roughshod over Miami. I don't know if it's going to look like the first game, because that first game, there was a lot of outliers in there, and I don't know how sustainable that victory was, but the Bills should come away with a victory here against Miami. It's just a matter of how dominant they potentially look. And, Tom mentioned it as well. And again, shout out to Tom. Tom Ernisse, awesome follow at Dolphins Talk Tom on Twitter, EVP of DolphinsTalk.com. Awesome website just in terms of football knowledge, and then also to stay up on a division rival in the Miami Dolphins. Now we're going to switch. We're going to pivot, talk about a couple other things. Bills had the bye week this past week, and excuse me while I take a drink here. The Bills had the bye week, and what's good about the bye week? Well, one, I hated this bye week. I should start with that. I think it came too early. I don't like it. Awesome reference to what I used to call these episodes, Roman. Know thy enemy. Awesome. I appreciate you, Roman. You're fantastic. And also, fun fact here coming from John. Buffalo has a lot of 305 guys like John Feliciano, Isaiah McKenzie, Zach Moss, and Diggs is always down here in the offseason. Oh, that's right, John. I always forget that you're down there in Miami. You're a Bills Mafia guy behind enemy lines. You know that better than anyone. Also, I want to go back. There was a good comment from Marissa. I'm scrolling. Forgive me. I wish I had a co-host who I think could talk while I search for this. Boom, there it is. What do you think of the matchup between Johnson, I'm guessing Taron Johnson, and Jalen Waddle for the upcoming game? I think this is a really interesting one. If with Waddle lining up in the slot as much as he does, Taron Johnson has been tremendous this year. I think he's been the second best player on the Bills defense behind Matt Milano. Poyer and Hyde are up there as well, as they always are. But Taron Johnson has been tremendous. We saw him get that new 3-year contract, well earned. He's awesome coming forward and supporting in the run game. He's awesome in zone coverage. He's not a liability, but he's not so strong / not so great at man coverage. But I think you will continue to see the Bills run zone defense against the Miami Dolphins. I think they've started to, no pun intended, mix in and disguise more coverages in terms of switching up between man and zone the last couple of weeks. You saw it a lot against Kansas City. We saw it a little bit versus Tennessee. But I think this matchup against Miami, given the struggles of the Dolphins offensive line and their struggles to get separation in their route running, I think you're going to see a lot more zone coverage from the Bills this game. So I think we can win that matchup. I think you really just got to clue in on Waddle and Gesicki. Devontae Parker can make some plays, but I'm not tremendously worried. I'm more worried how Waddle stretches the field from an underneath perspective. And once he gets the ball in his hands, I'm not necessarily focused on the Waddle versus Johnson matchup, especially given how I think the Bills defense is going to play Miami. But at this point, I almost trust Taron Johnson to hold his own against a variety of opponents, because at this point, he's earned my trust and he's earned my faith. And that's an awesome question. Keep going. I'm scrolling back through the comments. But yeah, we're going to talk about, you did, John, you forgot Gregory Rousseau. Also, well, he went to Miami. I don't know if he's from Miami per se. I don't know. Feel free to course correct me on that. But I want to talk bye week adjustments. As I started to mention before I went back to go to Marissa's question, I hated that the Bills bye week was this early. I like to have later bye weeks to go into the end part of the season fresher and be able to regroup more and be able to course correct better as you go towards the playoffs. This was a very early bye week, even just by a regular 17-week schedule, but let alone there's 18 weeks and 17 games this year. I don't like it. Question here From Steven, would you grade Milano as our best defensive player so far this season? I am literally going to talk about something very related to that in about 5 minutes, so stick around. I'm going to answer that. Awesome. I feel like I don't know if you're in this room with me right now and you can see my notes, but I will be addressing that. Yeah, so I hated that the bye week was this early. I didn't like it. I guess it's nice that it comes after a disappointing loss, so you allow the team to regroup and refocus a little bit. But I like bye weeks later in the year just for that perspective and that sake to kind of retool fully and get an extra week of health towards the back end of the year so you can go into the playoffs potentially stronger. But nonetheless, the Bills bye week came already. And bye weeks are when you make adjustments and, oh, no. I see that comment from Justin. Don't worry about it, Ant. We're essentially in a bye month. I refuse to subscribe to that. And I know McDermott and the team is not subscribing to that either. I refuse to acknowledge the whole bye week and then Miami, Jacksonville, Jets aspect. I refuse to acknowledge that. I think it's funny, but I refuse to acknowledge that. Also, shout out to Handsome Man joining us here and saying 83 watching and only 19 likes. Come on, people, bang that like. That is tremendously helpful. I've mentioned in every episode. I know it's corny, but all the likes are tremendously important towards helping myself and Cover One as a whole track and trend and get in front of more eyes and get out there for more ears to hear us. Also, rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage, to Cover One. It's tremendously helpful. We don't say it just to say it. It goes a long way. So thank you very much for those of you who have dropped likes and who are rating and reviewing and subscribing and all this stuff. And I like everybody to have fun, but no, don't. I'm just too superstitious, Nick. Nick says, Ant, we're going to roll this month. Cruise control. No, I can't say that. I'm too superstitious. I can't do it. And here's John. John making a very good point. I know we're talking about the struggles of the Miami Dolphins this year, but John throwing it out there just so the chatters know, Miami won 10 last year. They upgraded talent, and they lost 2 games on field goals in the final seconds. They have a bad record, but the Fins are an okay squad. I don't want to completely you shouldn't overlook anyone. As John just mentioned in the chat here, these are NFL teams we are playing legitimately any given Sunday. I'll point to the Tennessee game. How many people, you don't have to answer in the chat, how many people, look inward in yourselves here, how many people thought the Bills were going to steamroll Tennessee because, well, Tennessee lost to the Jets and we just beat the Chiefs? How many people thought we were going to absolutely murk the Titans? We did not murk the Titans. I recognize the state that the Dolphins are in and the Jags are in and the Jets are in. You don't overlook anyone anytime in the NFL. I don't care how bad the team is. I don't care how good your team is. You overlook no one. I recognize the level of competition may not be great these next several weeks, but overlook no one. Any given Sunday, it's not just a tremendous football movie. It is a legitimate, plausible thing in the NFL. Oh, yeah. Awesome comment here from Michael. Apparently, it's only any given Sunday when the Bills are bad, but when they're good, there's no upsets. 1,000%. Also, Michael, I'm surprised to see you're not making an offensive line or defensive line, trench related comment here. So I'm excited to see you branch out into some non-trench related comments. You have this one. You had the Jalen Waddle one earlier. I really like your evolution here, Michael, and I appreciate you stopping by as always. So bye week adjustments. It's important to get better in your bye week. You course correct, you self-diagnose, you self-scout and figure out, okay, how can we get better? And sorry, there's a ton of good comments. Awesome comment here from Autumn Ari. Even Josh Allen said in his press conference today that the Dolphins were 2 plays away from 3-4. So it's nice to see the Bills taking everyone seriously, 1,000%. And I see you, Michael. Give it time. I'm waiting for some offensive line comments. Actually, I'm going to be talking about the offensive line in a little bit. So I feel like I'm just teeing you up for easy stuff for you. First adjustment that I want the Bills to make. Eric Turner, the godfather of Cover One, he did an awesome video recently on the YouTube channel talking about the Bills' red zone struggles and if it's time to panic or worry a little bit. I thought it was super funny because we often think very similarly. That is my number one adjustment for the Bills coming out of this bye week is the red zone offense. And I'm not panicking. I'm not super stressed about it, but I am worried a little bit when it comes to the red zone offense of the Buffalo Bills. So just from a numbers perspective, currently right now in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills are 26th in red zone touchdown percentage at 55.17%. For reference, the top 6 in red zone touchdown percentage are all above 70%. So the Bills are off by about 15%. In 2020, they were 12th in the NFL in red zone touchdown percentage at 61.04%. For reference, Green Bay was number 1 at 76.81, which is unreal. And again, the top 6 all finished above 70%. What I think is interesting to take away from that, right? So forget about the ranking. Forget that the Bills are 26th right now and they were 12th last year. The numbers are very similar. The Bills have a red zone touchdown percentage of 55.17. Last year, they had a red zone touchdown percentage of 61.04. So in a year when the Bills offense was killing it, where Stephon Diggs led the league in receptions and yards, and the Bills were the best converting at converting third downs, and Josh Allen received MVP votes, and this offense had the best statistical offensive output in franchise history. With all that, the Bills still only had a red zone touchdown percentage of 61%. So out of every 10 trips to the red zone, they only scored a touchdown 6 times. For an offense that set the world on fire to a decent degree, they were still only 12th. But forget about the ranking. They were 6 out of 10. 6 out of every 10 attempts at red zone touchdown percentage. Not horrible. Again, only about 9% off of being in the top 6, but not ideal. John, I love you. You're fantastic. John's comment here. Ooh, a little history aspect here. October 25th, 1987, 2-3 Buffalo at Miami. Kelly was down 21-3, and the Bills come back to beat Miami 34-31. I was a college freshman, told my roommates Bills make a Super Bowl by the time we graduate, and we made 2. Turning point game in Buffalo history. And then John follows it up with a comment saying that, all caps, was the day like Neo in the Matrix I began to believe. Well done. First of all, thank you for the donation again, John. You're awesome. But the comment, I love the history. I love the context. I love how it pertains to what we're talking about. I'm not overlooking teams. I love the Matrix reference. I'm just going to. Awesome, John. I appreciate you. Also, a really great comment here from DC Ellis. I don't know how Tua is supposed to get into any kind of rhythm when his team is trying to get rid of him. That's fair. And yeah, Justin, every time the Packers hit the red zone, you can guarantee Rodgers will get a touchdown pass. Yeah, they go hard for him. And also, yeah, Zach, giving John some love. Love the facts at John. So again, Bills 55% red zone touchdown percentage right now. Last year, at a year where they killed it offensively, they finished the year at 61%. So they weren't terrible in the red zone last year, but it was an area where they could improve. And we've seen them digress a little bit so far in 2021. So right now, some further metrics. And again, I want to mention, I'm just going to talk about this, with pretty good detail, but briefly. Eric Turner went into a full 20-minute video breakdown with advanced metrics and putting all the pieces together in the Red Zone Worries episode of the Film Room. So go check that out. Not right now. Stay with me. Watch this episode. But after that, go check that out. And then use that as a little primer before you check out the Cover One Buffalo show later tonight at 9 o'clock with Greg and Aaron. But Eric was tremendous. A lot of the pieces that he used in that episode, I ironically already had in my notes, and then I pulled some things from that. He's a tremendous source of knowledge, so go check out that video where he breaks things down further when it comes to the Bills' struggles in the red zone this year. But the Bills, in terms of red zone DVOA this year, they're 17th, 21st in passing, 16th in rushing. They're also 10th in goal-to-goal scenarios. In 2020, they were 9th in red zone DVOA. So this year, 17th. Last year, 9th. Last year, they were 5th in passing. This year, 21st. Last year, 25th in rushing. This year, 16th. We're going to tie that in a little bit later. What we're seeing in the red zone from defenses, and this isn't crazy. Defenses are giving the Bills light boxes, and they're playing with a too high shell, playing over the top to keep everything in front of them, which isn't, again, something that's unheard of when it comes to red zone defense. Just to put it into perspective, when you get to that part of the field for an offense, the entire field is condensed, right? The defenders all of a sudden have extra defenders with them on the boundaries, on the sidelines, on the boundaries in the back of the end zone. So you've got condensed space to work if you are in offense. So if you're playing zone defense, odds are a bit in your favor, especially when you start to add in those other little variables like speed or size and length and all that stuff. there's a lot of opportunity for a defense to shrink and narrow passing windows and areas of operation for the offense to find room, whether you're the quarterback, receivers, running backs, anything like that. You're in that red zone. The field is condensed. It's easier to work and cover if you are the defense. The catch-22 of that is if you make a mistake and get beat, it's not so much, oh, well, we gave up a first down. You just gave up a touchdown and you just gave up 6. And awesome comment here from Zach saying the red zone offense really needs to be addressed. I hope it was the focal point of the bye week. So do I. We're going to keep talking about it here. So the Bills are seeing a lot of zone coverage. And to highlight that, I've got some fun numbers that come here. So in 2020 as a whole, including the playoffs, defenses were in man coverage against the Bills and Josh Allen 35% of the time. In 2021, they're in man coverage 22% of the time, so a 13% drop off. In the red zone, this is huge, 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 huge. In 2020, the Bills saw man coverage in the red zone on 46% of snaps. This year, in the red zone, 19. A 27% drop, if I'm adding correctly. Yeah, I am. 27% drop in man coverage in the red zone. Defenses are just letting the Bills kind of take what the defense gives them. They're rallying. They're making tackles. They are making the Bills offense a bit inefficient and using the boundary and leverage of the sideline and the back of the end zone, using that leverage of those factors to help them slow the Bills offense down. Now, awesome comment here from Michael, and this leads perfectly into my next point. Michael says here, one of the downsides to RPOs, run pass options, is that the defense gets to dictate the decision. So why wouldn't they make it so Josh gives the ball up? One of the biggest takeaways I took from Eric. So Eric broke a lot of that down in the video last night. And also something that Eric mentioned in that video was, also a lot of love for Eric in this episode, as it should be. Zach mentioned, I checked it out. Eric was quote unquote pounding the table to, I think instead of caught, you mean cut down on the RPO plays in the red zone. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. So the Bills, in terms of the red zone, the Bills are running RPOs, run pass options, 24% of the time in the red zone. And for those of you who don't know, run pass option basically means you run a play, and based on what the defense is giving you, I'm trying to break it down as simple as possible. Based on what the defense gives you, you either hand off the ball or you pass the ball. You see it with Josh Allen a ton. You see him in shotgun. He snaps the ball. He starts to put it in the running back's gut, but he's not looking at the running back. He's looking somewhere else. Usually in a run pass option, you're looking at a second level defender like an outside linebacker, and that key is going to let you know, okay, if that outside linebacker comes up, I'm going to fake it and I'm going to pass it behind him. If he stays back in coverage, I'm going to hand it off. It's very similar to a zone read, where in the zone read, the quarterback is reading the defensive end, which I think a lot more people are familiar with and they get a little confused with. Zone read, the tackle goes down, the defensive end is left as the guy to read. If the defensive end crashes down, the quarterback keeps the ball and takes off outside. If the defensive end sits, quarterback gives the ball to the running back and the running back takes off. RPOs and zone reads are different things, but there is similarity in terms of the philosophy, which is you are reading what the defense is doing. And based on what the defense does, you read and react and try and take advantage of that. To Michael's point and to Eric's point in his video was that by doing that, you can kind of force the Bills' hand a little bit. So if you don't commit and you sit back, you force Josh Allen to be like, oh, okay, this dude's not coming. Let me hand the ball off, which can work because, again, that's what the design is. Okay, this is your read. If your read does A, hand the ball off. Okay, defenses are doing A, let me hand the ball off. The problem is what we're also seeing is the Bills are getting light boxes. So how many people are in the box? Defensive linemen, linebackers, all in there. And, awesome comment from Michael. Yeah. I lost it. I got it. Yeah. People need to review play action versus zone read versus RPO, especially commentators. Awesome comment there, Michael. Defenses are giving the Bills light boxes because they're trying to protect against the pass. So they're sitting back in zone coverage. They're playing with 2 safeties up top. They're trying to keep everything in front of them. And if the Bills make a catch, they come up, they rally, they tackle. And when they're going to do that consistently up the field, and when you get into the red zone, they're going to do it even more. Because their idea is now that they have a condensed field, they can try and hold the Bills to a field goal. When you're running those light boxes, you have to be able to run against those light boxes. If there's only 6 defenders in the box, which the Bills are seeing a lot with these light boxes, usually 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers. You have to take advantage of that. And when you run the ball against those light boxes, those should be easy, minimum 4 yards a carry. But usually anywhere from 5 to 6, maybe even 7. The Bills are not seeing success in their runs against light boxes. They're getting those light boxes and they're not succeeding and they're not winning when they're running against those light boxes. And that was something we saw to a significantly worse degree last year for the Bills. The Bills were not good at running against light boxes, and it was something that hindered their running game all year. And Michael mentioned the RPO aspect. Eric, Michael was referencing what Eric talked about in the RPO. So again, the Bills are using RPOs about 24% of the time, so about a quarter of the time in the red zone. And RPOs are great. Reading things in real time can be great in general because, and we're sticking to RPOs, they allow for real-time reaction and adjustment to what the defense is giving you. You've got these check with me's and you've got glance routes and all these things that allow a quarterback to read and react in real time and be like, okay, the defense is doing this. Boom, I'm going over here. Oh, the defense did that. Cool, counter. Like you can counter what the defense is trying to do to you. You can counter punch. You can counter their counter. If they go for a jab, you can duck and land a haymaker. If they go for a haymaker, you can duck and land a jab. It allows you to continue in this theme of being versatile and being multiple on offense. The problem that can potentially happen is, one, as Michael mentioned, the defense can dictate things to you a little bit. If you're running an RPO and your read is, okay, if this linebacker comes down, I pass it. If he sits, I hand it off. The defense is just going to be like, okay, whatever you do, don't go forward. Sit. Make him hand the ball off and then come up and make the tackle. We'd rather take our chances with Zach Moss or Devin Singletary running for 3 or 4 yards than we would not having as many guys in coverage to defend Josh Allen. And then you add in the other aspect of a lot of this is based on pre and post snap reads. So a lot of it falls on the shoulders of Josh Allen figuring out, okay, the defense is in this coverage. This guy's blitzing. This guy's the mic. How many safeties are there? Okay, I'm going to change to this play. Or, okay, this is an RPO. We're most likely going to throw this pass. Or, okay, we're going to run a glance route here, and I'm going to check it out to Diggs on the out, or I'm going to take advantage on a little bubble screen and dump it to Bees, all these types of things. What we've seen in the 2 games the Bills have lost against Tennessee and against Pittsburgh is there were some misreads from Josh Allen. Pittsburgh and Tennessee, no pun intended, did a tremendous job of disguising coverage against the Buffalo Bills. They would show man coverage and then they would drop into zone and vice versa. Or they would make it seem like there was only going to be 2 defensive backs lined up on these 2 receivers, and then all of a sudden they'd shift and they'd have 3 guys over there, maybe even 4. They'd have 3 over 2 when it looked like you were just about to have 2 over 2. So if you're in this read and react type of offense, if you are not reading properly, that's not good. And Josh Allen's mental game has progressed tremendously. But odds are, if you're running more read and react type of stuff, eventually at some point you're going to misread. You're going to make the wrong call. And defenses that are good at disguising coverage because of the versatility they have on defense, they can do some things to confuse you in that regard. So that's where the Bills offense has become a bit inefficient. You've got zone coverage heavy in the red zone, which allows you to gum up the works a little bit because you're in a condensed space. And then when you add that in with the Bills' tendency to run more RPOs in the red zone and just run, more read offense in general, if you're wrong pre-snap or post-snap, or if you read a simulated pressure wrong and you think there's 5 guys coming, but there's really only 3, or you think these 4 guys are coming and it's really, no, these 2 are dropping out and there's 3 more to come over here to make 5, or 2 more to come over here to make 4, like what we saw from Tennessee. If you're misreading the simulated pressures or the creeper pressures or the actual pressures or the coverage, all of these things, if you're doing that and then running a read and react play like an RPO, it's tough to succeed like that. The good news is the plays have been there. A lot of it is just going to come down to the Bills' execution and Josh Allen executing. And also, if the Bills win against Tennessee, we might not even, I would be, because red zone efficiency is a big thing to me. But if the Bills beat Tennessee, maybe we're not even talking about this as much. If the Bills convert on that 4th down and Josh Allen doesn't fall, if he hits Manny Sands in the back of the end zone on that rollout, or if a couple of the reads are better against Pittsburgh and they don't get field goals in the beginning of that game, maybe we're not even talking about this as much. But as of right now, I think it is something to consider. It is something to talk about. And again, it's a combination of a lot of things. It's a combination of potential misreads pre-snap by Josh Allen. It's a combination of poor execution by the offense when the play is being run. It's a combination of good defense from their opponents and playing against strong studs. I know Tennessee's defense isn't good statistically, but Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry, and Kevin Byard are sweet. They are very good. Pittsburgh's defense speaks for itself. Even Washington's, who I know we lit up, they've got some studs over there. And then you also add in anything if Allen is late to read his coverage or you're just not in the right alignment. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So it's a mixed bag in terms of what we've seen cause the Bills' red zone struggles. But I hope that is something that that gets addressed, because I believe it needs to be addressed. We cannot live at a 55% red zone touchdown percentage and get to a Super Bowl. It's possible. 1,000% it's possible, but you cannot get 3 when your opponent gets 7. We saw it happen. Two great examples, and they're just the ones that come to mind immediately. 2019 in the playoffs against the Texans. They got touchdowns. We got field goals. We should have beat them that game. We lost. This year against the Chiefs, we got touchdowns. They got field goals. They lost. Even the game against Tennessee, we got field goals. They got touchdowns. We lost. And there's a multitude of other examples like that. The Patriots did that for years. Teams would march the ball on the Patriots. They'd only give up field goals. Lo and behold, they score touchdowns in the second half. They win. When you get to the red zone, you have to be efficient. You have to have a higher touchdown percentage of 55%. There, red zone stuff. I'm also going to be giving more stats and breakdowns on Twitter when it comes to the red zone for the Buffalo Bills. But I want to move on to this next topic, which has already been a bit of a topic in the chat. I'm going to take a drink of water here. Matt Milano. This isn't so much of an adjustment as it is just a hope and a worry. Oh, also, let's go to this John comment here. If Buffalo gets 7, not 3 on 2 drives, that stalled on the 2 and the 5. It's 14-0 Buffalo versus Tennessee. Refs took 2 touchdowns off the board. The Sanders and the Smith holdings, while Henry's 76-yard touchdown. Tennessee tackled Poyer. So Tre'Davious White also got held on that play, just to add on to that. But yeah, very fair point. Matt Milano. I don't know who it is in the chat who's talking about how trash Matt Milano is. He's been our best defender. Steven, you asked that question earlier. Matt Milano has been the best defender on this Bills team pre-hamstring injury. This Bills defense was lighting it up. I thought he was head and shoulders above in terms of being the best defender on this Bills team. I thought it was Matt Milano. I thought it was Taron Johnson. And then you could have a variety of guys be 3 or 4, round out the top 5. Matt Milano has been killing it. He did not look like that Matt Milano against Tennessee. I really think it was due to the hamstring. I mentioned it on Twitter. I mentioned it on the post game. It looked like Matt Milano was running in quicksand against Tennessee, and the Bills defense can succeed without him. But to win a Super Bowl, Matt Milano needs to be Matt Milano. Matt Milano does things that don't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. He's not the guy who's going to have 160 tackles and lead the NFL. He's not going to have a ton of sacks. He might not even have a ton of interceptions, but he is a pure disruptor for this defense. His play style and his versatility allows this defense to be varied. It allows this defense to be multiple, and he's a dog around the line of scrimmage and in coverage. The things that he's able to do allows Tremaine Edmonds to be more successful. It allows Taron Johnson to be more successful. His synergy and understanding of the relationship between he and Taron Johnson with him, I don't think it's any coincidence that you've seen a jump in Taron Johnson's play this year now that Matt Milano is back and Matt Milano is healthy. Also, what he does in the box and around the line of scrimmage allows Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer to continue to disguise coverage on the back end and do a variety of things and rock and roll in single coverage in terms of who drops down and who moves with motion, or if they sit in too high, or if they shift to a cover one robber. The biggest key to this Bills defense is Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Their interchangeability. They both can be a strong safety. They both can be a free safety, right? They are the most important thing to this defense being successful. And the most important thing to them is Matt Milano. The health of Matt Milano is something that needs to be watched. It needs to be keyed in on as we come forward in this game. I did not want him to play against Tennessee. Granted, I also thought that we could beat Tennessee without him. But appreciate you, Ellis, saying great stance. Thank you very much. I'm glad you appreciate it. just because we had the bye week this week, I wanted Milano to sit against Tennessee. Hamstring injuries are tricky. They're scary. Soft tissue injuries are tricky. They're scary. I would have rather him sat against Tennessee and then sit this past week for the bye week and come into this week as rested and as healthy as possible. We'll see what we get against Miami, but a hammy isn't really a thing where you can like play a little bit and it'll heal and play a little bit and then let it heal. You need to sit and not do anything. So I'm a little nervous for that. And to whoever was really giving Matt Milano a hard time in the chat, I get it. I just think you're off on the reasoning. He was not 100%. He looked like he was running in quicksand. He did not look like the Matt Milano that was the best player on this defense and arguably the best off-ball linebacker in the entire NFL for the first 4 weeks of the season. So Matt Milano is tremendously important to this defense. Also, I want to comment on something here. Zach talking about that they don't fear our running backs. I think that is 1,000% part of the red zone struggles you're seeing in the Bills. I think majority of the time, just with how good the passing attack is and how good Josh Allen is, most teams are going to say, okay, try and beat us with the run because we don't want Josh Allen to do it. We don't want the ball in Josh Allen's hands. But I think it's even more so because they don't fear our running backs. I don't think, I like Singletary and Moss, and I like the combo. But I don't think defenses are sitting up at night being like, well, we have to stop Moss. Well, we have to stop Singletary. They are scheming for Josh Allen in this passing attack, and they are living with whatever touches Singletary and Moss get. They are not fearing that backfield. And I think that contributes as well. And that's part of the play, granted, a lot of it is on the offensive line, but having your running backs being able to take advantage of those light boxes, and we're not seeing it, again, for a variety of reasons, but teams do not fear our running backs. That is spot on. The last bye week adjustment I want to mention, Michael Lucas, if you're still here, this is for you. I want to talk about the trenches, offensive and defensive line. We're going to talk about the offensive line first. 22nd in pass block efficiency, 11th in pass block win rate, 12th in run block win rate. And again, win rate is defined as how often a pass rusher is able to beat his block in 2.5 seconds. So offensively, basically, if you don't let your rusher beat you within 2.5 seconds, the longer you hold on to that, the better your grade is. So again, for the offensive line, 22nd pass block efficiency, 11th in pass block win rate, 12th in run block win rate. There's Michael. Hog mollies with an exclamation point. He says, the Bills offensive line isn't terrible. I don't think it's awful. I definitely think it's the biggest weakness on this team, which also could be by default because they have so many areas of strength. But this offensive line is inconsistent. I don't think it's a top 10 line. I don't think it's a bottom 10 offensive line, but I think they have moments where they play like a top 10 offensive line, and they also have moments where they play like a bottom 10 offensive line. That's scary. That's nerve-wracking. It's less than ideal that Spencer Brown is nicked up and didn't practice today or had a limited practice today, especially since they've thrust him into the starting lineup, and he needs more practice, more reps, both in game action and in practice because he is so raw of a prospect. And we need that offensive line to gel with him at right tackle and Darrell Williams at right guard. I think the line will get better. I talked about it in last week's show. Just, Darrell Williams was going to be a right tackle. Now he's in at right guard. Spencer Brown was supposed to sit. Now he's starting at right tackle. The more these guys get reps together and play, this offensive line should be better as we move forward. But nonetheless, I am still worried. This offense has tremendous weaponry with Josh Allen, the receivers, the tight ends, even the running backs to a degree who fit as a bit of change of pace in some aspects. It would be very unfortunate if this offense was held back because of poor offensive line play. We lost for a multitude of reasons in the AFC Championship against Kansas City, but one of them was because our offensive line did not hold up, and Chris Jones ate everyone that he came up against. The offensive line has to get better. I think that's an area where we need improvement. We need to see it. Also, defensive line. Not that the defensive line is terrible, but we're looking at the defensive line right now. They're 17th in pass rush win rate, which isn't terrible. Again, middle of the pack, but with everything they've invested in terms of draft picks, granted those guys are young, you would hope to see a little bit of more improvement, especially with how many guys they kept for the defensive line, with the idea of more rotation and a more effective front four. You would hope to see a bit more production coming from that group. They are also 12th in sacks per game, and Pro Football Reference has them at 13th in pressures total, but because they have one less game than a lot of those teams, they're 4th in pressure percentage. Again, another mixed bag with the defensive line. Sometimes you've got games where they just destroy an offense, like what they did against Miami. And then you've got games like Tennessee where they didn't do what they should have done. Tennessee's offensive line, especially once Taylor Lewan went out, should have been taken advantage of by the Bills' defensive line. Going into that game with Taylor Lewan, Ryan Tannehill, I don't have the notes. There are multiple pages in my notebook behind, but Ryan Tannehill was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL heading into that game. The Titans had given up the 4th most pressures in the NFL. They should have had a better day against Ryan Tannehill. Granted, he maneuvered in the pocket well, and they started to get victimized with that play action. And once Derrick Henry started going, that was the key to everything, because everything for the Titans offense is built upon and fueled by the threat of giving the ball to Derrick Henry. But we got no sacks on Tannehill. Didn't get a ton of pressures, or at least effective pressures. We allowed him to escape the pocket on several times, or on several snaps. I'm very interested to see what the trenches look like going forward for both the Bills' offensive line and defensive lines, especially with the rotation. I'm a big AJ Epinesa guy. I understand the idea of, wanting to go more heavy on the D line against Tennessee, but I was pretty bummed to see him not in the lineup there. I don't know how much he adds, but he has been one of our best pass rushers, especially if you're looking at it from an efficiency standpoint. Granted, a lot of his, stats and production came back in week 2 against Miami, but I think AJ Epinesa adds something to this offense, and he's got to step up. We're seeing Gregory Rousseau kind of come back to reality a little bit. He's looked good in the run, or against the run this year, not so much against Tennessee with his bootleg counter rush responsibility on several plays where he just kept going to Tannehill, and Derrick Henry just cut back, including doing that on the 76-yard touchdown run and on a 19-yard run later in the game. We need improved play from that defensive line. This defense, even though Hyde and Poyer are the most important to me, the unit that has the most stress thrust upon it is that front 4, because what is expected of them, which we've talked about all the time. The Bills want to mainly just rush 4, and they want to drop 7. They want to play games up front with the front 4, but they really want to just rush 4, rotate bodies, keep them fresh. They need guys who can play against the run and rush the quarterback. It's hard being a defensive lineman for the Buffalo Bills, but that's what it is. They have to step up. And they're not awful. They're not bad. I don't think anybody should come away from this thinking like, well, the Bills' defensive line has been trash or terrible. And awesome comment here from Michael. Michael's always into the trench warfare stuff. Love it. Michael said, looking back at the Titans game, their offensive line have their issues, but they look technical and assignment sound. The Bills' O-line didn't have that consistency. That will come with more reps. I think that's a fair point to say. Again, this Bills' offensive line, Spencer Brown is young just in his career. In terms of his age and actual reps and repetition and game experience, but also this offensive line is young in terms of playing together. This is not the starting offensive line that we saw through training camp and through practices and through the preseason. This lineup was thrust together in the first quarter of the year. They have to learn how to play with each other. Chemistry is a tremendously important thing for offensive lines. Talent is important. Scheme fit is important. Chemistry is maybe the most important. And if it's not, it's a 1A, 1B type of scenario. Chemistry is tremendously important. I think this offensive line will get better. I think the defensive line will get home and get better a little bit more too. A healthy Matt Milano in tandem with the ascension of Tremaine Edmonds could go a long way towards relieving some of the pressure that this Bills defensive line faces. But nonetheless, the D-line has to step up a bit and be more effective, and the offensive line just has to be solid. That's it. We don't need the Bills offensive line to be a top 5 offensive line. We don't need that. We don't even need them to be a top 10 offensive line. But if they're going to be 12th, just be 12th. You can't have a game where you're 4th and then a game where you're 25th. Just be 12th. Kind of like what we asked from Matt Hawk in the punting game. It's awesome if you boom a 60-yarder and pin him inside the 5. But it's kind of negated by the next punt if you only kick it 17 yards and it goes out of bounds at the 50. Consistency, expectation. It allows you to build more rapport in terms of your game script and how you move forward, because you understand what you're going to get and there's less variability. So, also another comment from Michael here, the sack fumble. The one that, that Brown gave up Janico Autry that turned the ball into the air, and then Byard, took it as Moss mistimed his jump. Michael says the sack fumble Brown gave up was a rookie losing to experience. That could counter Brown, but Brown doesn't have the experience to counter the counter yet. Very fair point. I think Spencer Brown will get better. I think this offensive line will get better holistically as they gel. It's just a matter of how long it takes them and how much better they get and how consistent they can be. But those are the three big ones for me. The red zone touchdown percentage and the efficiency in the red zone, the health of Matt Milano and him getting back to that game record and arguably the best off-ball linebacker in the league like he was in the beginning of this year, the first quarter of this year. And then what we see in the trenches, what we see from the offensive line. I think this game versus the Dolphins is one that I'm not going to get too high on, regardless if the Bills come out and sack Tua 6 times again, or if they consistently pressure Tua. I'm not putting a ton of stock in that because of how much the Dolphins' offensive line has struggled. It'll be nice to see them dominate a unit they should dominate. That would be good. And then in terms of the offensive line, Wilkins can make some plays. They've got some ability on defense. I don't think we should completely overlook their defense, but I would not expect coming into this game to see the Dolphins defensive line give the Bills offensive line problems to the point that Josh Allen has to run for his life. So this should be a bit of a get-right game. Again, if the Bills dominate, don't get too high, but it's good to see if they dominate groups and teams that they should dominate against. But nonetheless, those are things that I'm really watching for every single week from here on out. And I want to see the change in this team in the red zone and in their trenches offensively and defensively versus what they looked like going into the bye week and into this break. And that's going to do it for me on this episode of Disguise Coverage. I want to thank, awesome comment again. Michael, you're killing it tonight. I love Michael's comment. It sucks that both Brown and Groot had those rookie growing pains in the same game, but they'll learn and improve. Hey, I'd rather have rookie growing pains in week 6 than in the AFC Championship. So fair point. Oh, awesome. John, thank you very much. John, you were fantastic tonight. Thank you very much for your donations. Thank you very much for your comments. I love, Jason, I feel you. I meant to put I'm so terrible at pointing at these. I meant to put orange garland on the tree with the purple. You'll see orange for the post game this Sunday with myself, Greg, and Aaron. I meant to put orange along. So that's purple and it's got bats. I meant to put orange that has some pumpkins and some jack-o'-lantern stuff in it. I didn't do it. I'm going to be honest. My wife is pretty much responsible for all of this. And so sometimes she's busy and she can't get to it. And I just don't pick up the slack. So I apologize. That's my fault. But there was supposed to be some orange. You'll see it on the post game. Thank you for calling it out and keeping me on my toes. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here live with me in this episode. For those of you who have been here live, thank you so much. The chat was jumping as it always is. You guys had thoughtful, well said comments all throughout this episode. So this was really fun for me. I wish I could have I say this all the time, but I feel like it would be nice just to do an episode where I don't have anything and I just come and sit and wait for you guys to throw up comments in the chat and we all have one giant discussion. That would be awesome. But thank you guys so much. These are why these goodbyes take so long because I get so many questions. A lot of them are about the tree. One, let me go back to Jason saying thanks again for putting on a great show. I appreciate you, Jason. You're awesome. You mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. Question from Childhood Time Machine. Do I keep the Xmas tree up all year long? Yes. And then I change the garland based on what holiday it is. So you're going to see a little more oranges and some yellows and some reds as we move into November for a little fall. I've been rocking the purple. I'm so terrible at this. I'm going to stop pointing, so I'm awful at it. But we're rocking the purple is a bit of a Halloween theme. Also, you see the little pumpkins around the outline there. Those are obviously fall themed. So yeah, I changed the garland based on the time of year. So you'll get some more fall colors in November. You'll get Christmas stuff around Christmas, then maybe some reds around Valentine's Day, maybe some green for St. Patrick's Day. You'll get some light yellows and light blues and light purples for Easter and pastels. You'll get red, white, and blue for 4th of July, all that stuff. So yeah, that was a long way to say, yes, I keep the Xmas tree up all year round. Thank you guys very much for joining me live on this episode. If you didn't join me live, that is completely fine. Thank you so much for watching this episode, listening to this episode, whatever way you consumed this content. Thank you so much. I wish I could properly put into words how much that means to me and how much the support of all you guys means to myself and to the entire team of Cover One. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. I'm tremendously thankful and grateful every single moment of every day that I have a platform that allows me to do what I do here, and that it's appreciated by as many people as it's appreciated by. So it means a lot from you guys. So thank you so much. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage and to Cover One as a whole. Please drop a like on your way out if you haven't already. Again, that the likes, the rates, reviews, subscriptions, they go so far in helping us to grow and expand and continue to do what we do. And we want to continue to grow and get bigger and hit more eyes and more audiences and be able to drive more into this brand and do more things. And you guys are the key to that. So please, continue to do what you guys do and propping us up and, allowing us to be who we are. And also, Underdog Fantasy. I always like to mention them here, this part of the show. I love fantasy football and football in general. And also a nice little fun thing to do daily, some best ball stuff, maybe some player prop parlays, all this cool stuff. Myself and the entire Cover One team does it on the Underdog Fantasy app. Download that app, use the promo code Cover1. When you do that, you're going to get a free $10 from Underdog when you deposit $10 yourself. So they're going to double your deposit right there for free, which is awesome. Again, use the promo code Cover1. That's cover and the number one. That's also in the episode description. Shout out to the sponsor of the show, One Pie Pizza. Good people, good pizza. Oh, great blue cheese, homemade blue cheese. I feel like that's not talked about enough because homemade blue cheese is awesome. The dedication to do that and then the execution is even better. They're fantastic. Go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Proceeds for the month of October go to Roswell Park Cancer Institute in efforts to knock out cancer. Go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Very big thank you to them for being a continued partner of the show. I appreciate all you guys so very much. I hope all of you are doing well, and I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones all stay safe and continue to live your lives to the fullest. Thank you very much, Justin, for being here and saying great show as usual. And thank you. No, thank you, Justin. I appreciate you stopping by as always and being awesome. Yeah. Have a safe Halloween this weekend. Don't do anything too crazy, but have a good time. I'll see you this Sunday for the Cover One post game with Greg and Aaron. I'll see you tomorrow night for the Cover One fantasy show with Greg and Rich Haynes. Very busy time here in the Prohaska household. I appreciate you guys. Stay safe. Continue to do well. And as always, go Bills. And I'll see you next week.